It was one of those mornings where nothing seemed out of the ordinary, just a dad walking his little girl to the farmer's market, dog trotting alongside like he owned the block. The kind of Saturday people forget about by Sunday. But for Jacob Miller, that day was burned into him forever. He wasn't some flashy hero. He was a mechanic grease under the nails coveralls, stained no matter how many times you washed them. 37, widowed, raising his daughter alone in a little neighborhood outside Philadelphia. He'd done his time in the Marines, carried scars on his shoulder and in his head, and when his wife passed from cancer, he swore he was done with all that danger, all that chaos. His world shrunk down to two things: Ellie, his 8-year-old daughter, and Duke, a German shepherd he adopted so she wouldn't feel so alone. That morning, Ellie was babbling about some book with dragons, her hands flying everywhere, Duke looking up at her like he understood every word. Jacob smiled, half listening, half thinking about the transmission job waiting at his shop. Life was quiet, predictable, until it wasn't. The first gunshots didn't sound real, like firecrackers echoing through the old parking garage across the street. Then came the screams. People's scattered faces twisted in panic. Jacob did what any dad would, pulled Ellie behind him, scanning, calculating instincts he thought he buried, roaring back to life. And that's when he saw her. A police officer down on the pavement, clutching her shoulder, blood spreading through her vest. Two figures in black were moving through the shadows, with rifles closing in to finish what they started. Jacob froze just long enough to feel Ellie's small hand slip into his and hear her whisper, voice trembling but steady, "Daddy, we have to help her." Those words hit harder than any bullet. He could have run. God knows part of him wanted to. But what would his daughter see? A father who turned away while someone bled out 10 feet away, or the man she always believed he was? He shoved Ellie into the corner store, told old Mrs. Rivera behind the counter, "Call 911, keep her safe, don't let her watch." Before Ellie could protest, Jacob was already moving straight toward the gunfire. Duke was faster. He bounded ahead, barking so deep it echoed off the concrete, startling the shooters just long enough. Jacob sprinted, a bullet grazing past his ear, another sparking off the ground near his knee. He dropped to his knees beside the wounded officer, grabbed her under the arms, and dragged with every ounce of muscle he'd earned in the Marines. "I got you," he grunted, though he wasn't sure she heard over the roar of gunfire and Duke's snarling. A bullet tore through his upper arm, hot and searing, but he didn't stop. Couldn't. Not with her eyes locked on his, brown, desperate, clinging to him like he was her only shot at seeing another sunrise. He hauled her behind a delivery truck, stripped off his jacket, pressed it hard to her wound. "Stay with me. What's your name?" Through a whisper of pain, she answered, "Harper." "All right, Harper. You're not dying on me today. Help's coming." Sirens wailed in the distance. The shooters slipped away into alleys they knew too well. Jacob thought it was over. He was wrong. When the patrol cars screeched in, they didn't see a rescuer. They saw a blood-covered civilian crouched over one of their own, a dog still bristling and growling at anyone who came too close. Guns leveled, orders barked. "Step away from the officer. Get on the ground. Control the dog." "I'm helping her," Jacob shouted, not daring to move his hands from the compress. But the man in charge, Sergeant Cole, wasn't listening. Cold eyes, slicked back blonde hair, the kind of guy who looked at people and saw tools or threats, nothing in between. He ordered Jacob cuffed, Duke dragged away, and worst of all, Ellie taken into protective custody. Jacob's whole world ripped apart in minutes. At the station, Cole leaned across the table, file in hand. Former Marine, PTSD, wife gone. That's a lot of trauma, Miller. Sometimes trauma makes people unpredictable, like being in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. Jacob kept his jaw tight, blood seeping through his bandaged arm. "I was taking my kid to buy apples. That's all." But Cole smirked, twisting the knife. "Convenient. A routine that puts you right where our undercover officer got ambushed. You expect me to believe that what Jacob didn't know was that Officer Harper, lying in a hospital bed, was already fighting back. She refused to let painkillers blur what she'd seen: a father charging into gunfire to save her life. She dug into his background commendations for valor, spotless record. A mechanic who lived paycheck to paycheck but put every dime into his daughter's college fund. Not a criminal. A hero. And then she found the rot. Missing weapons from evidence surveillance devices signed out under Cole's name offshore accounts, fat with dirty money. The gang, the Iron Serpents, weren't just thriving. They had a man inside the department feeding them everything. Harper's near death wasn't random. It was a hit set up by Cole himself. Jacob wasn't supposed to be a savior. He was supposed to be the scapegoat. Internal Affairs got involved. Agent Simone Hale's sharp eyes and sharper instincts pulled the threads together. Devices, bank deposits, wiretaps. The whole ugly picture came into focus. 3 days later, the raid on the Iron Serpents went down. Rain hammered the docks as tactical teams closed in. And there was Jacob wearing a borrowed vest, Duke at his side once more. He wasn't ordered to be there, but he volunteered anyway. "You want these guys caught," he told Simone. "Then let me help." Inside the warehouse, chaos erupted, Gunfire shouting, gang members scattering like rats. Duke's bark guided officers toward hidden escape routes, his nose finding men before their heat signatures even showed up on scanners. Jacob moved like he'd never left the Marines, steering teams dragging suspects down covering corners. And there was Cole, caught red-handed whispering warnings to the gang leader while wearing a wire Simone planted. His betrayal laid bare in his own words. When they cuffed him, his face cracked disbelief, melting into pure resignation. The game was up. The trial was ugly, public, unforgettable. Harper testified, steady voice recounting the ambush and the man who saved her. Video footage played of Jacob sprinting through bullets, Duke lunging the desperate drag behind the truck. The jury didn't need convincing. Cole got 25 years. The gang boss life without parole. 17 others locked away. And Jacob. He walked out with the Citizen's Medal of Valor, a medal he never wanted, looking uncomfortable in a suit that didn't fit. What mattered more was Ellie sitting in the front row, clapping like her dad had just won the Super Bowl. Duke, tail wagging, seemed to know his family was whole again. Life didn't go back to normal, though. It got better. Jacob hired 2 extra hands at the garage, gave jobs to kids in the neighborhood who needed a break. He started teaching free self-defense classes at the community center. Duke became a therapy dog, visiting hospitals with Ellie as his little handler. And Harper. She started stopping by first to thank Jacob, then to help with paperwork, then just because she wanted to. One day, Ellie looked at them holding hands and said with that blunt kid honesty, "So are you guys going to get married or what?" Jacob laughed. Harper blushed, and Duke barked once like he was voting yes. 6 months later, under golden leaves in Fairmount Park, they weren't talking about trials or medals anymore. They were talking about family. A family they built not out of perfect beginnings, but out of fire loss and the choice to stand when it mattered most. Now here's where I leave you with the question. Was Jacob reckless for charging into Gunfire with a daughter depending on him, or was he the truest definition of courage? And what about the cops? Why is it so easy for authority to see threat instead of hero? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever seen someone misjudged so badly only to prove everyone wrong? Do you think society owes more to men like Jacob, ordinary people who do the right thing when nobody else will? Because in the end, medals fade, headlines disappear. But the choice to act, that's what defines us. And maybe that's the story you came here to hear.